Yo, what's good, y'all? Y'all know who it is. KJ back in one of the video. Um, right now, what I'm gonna be reacting to is top 10 people who outlived insane prison sentences. So I'm finna react to this. This will be my first time reacting to this. Um, so yeah, man. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
How's it going, all you most basic people? I'm Landon, and I actually just got back from my honeymoon from Italy. I pre-filmed a ton of videos, which is why it kind of looks like I never left. I didn't go anywhere. But I went there. If you guys want to check out the vlog videos I've been doing, you guys can click right over here. And in this video, I went to a restaurant. Me and my wife, we ordered some food, but the guy didn't want to serve us. He told me to go back to my country. The guy was just a racist guy. We filmed the whole thing. He's flipping the birdie. He's telling me off. If you guys want to watch this video, click right here. And also there's another vlog video if you guys want to go through the channel where I almost got arrested for being brown. I got pulled over. I got ID checked. It was really crazy. I mean, what's going on in Italy? If you guys want to check it out, you guys can click right here. Also, I'll put the link in the description below. But other than all of that, Italy was amazing. The food was great. And I can't wait to go back. Okay, so enough of all that. Let's get right into this list. This is the top 10 people who outlived insane prison sentences. Starting off at number 10, we have Eddie Collins. And this is not to get confused with Eddie Collins, the American baseball player. We are talking about a man who's been locked up for the past 43 years. Eddie was serving time for first-degree murder. Throughout his prison stay, he said, and I quote, "It was a sad situation. It was something I regret and still regret." He was 21 years old, living in Arizona at the time he was locked up. He grew up in the bad part of the city where he was buying drugs with his 17-year-old brother. Well, one day when Eddie and his brother was buying drugs, they got into an altercation, and that's when Eddie pulled out a gun, and you guys know what happens next. Bam, bam, life in jail. Moving into number 9, we're talking about Otis Johnson, who just served 44 years behind bars. Otis went to prison at the age of 25 years old for attempted murder of a police officer. Otis has been locked away since the 70s, and now he's just entered into the modern society of complex technology. It's going to be a really tough time for him, but he did commit a horrible crime. Back in 1998 was when he lost touch with his family, so he doesn't know anything about them or where they are. He's just alone in the world. When he was released from prison, they gave him his ID back, and they gave him $40. Here you go.
I remember him from somewhere. I had seen him
He's for sure
somewhere.
gonna have to renew his ID because, I mean, he's been locked away for a very long time. And $40 won't actually get you that far. And, oh yeah, he also got 2 bus tickets. I mean, where the heck is Otis gonna go? He enters the world as a homeless person. He was released at the age of 69 years old. Most of your life is gone. You've, lived it and it was in jail. You can no longer work, so I'm not sure how he's gonna make a living. Well, I guess that was a decision he should have decided 44 years ago. Number 8, we have John Franzese, who is a 100-year-old mobster who was just released from prison after serving 50 years behind bars. John was released on the 23rd of
It's a
June
long time
of this
in
year,
jail,
so that was
man.
just weeks ago. He was released from the Federal Medical Center. John was an underboss of the crime organization. John has boosted about killing at least 60 people in his lifetime of crime. It's actually so crazy to me that this guy was allowed to be released into the public. I know he's probably now a very, very harmless old man who can't really do anything, but he didn't give those 60 people a chance at life. I don't know, I'm just saying. Serving 60 years
people.
at number 7, we have Harvey Stewart. Harvey was released back in 2011 at the age of 83 years old. Harvey Stewart has a really long rap sheet from a junkyard heist in Houston to murdering someone. During most of his prison stay, not many people visited him, and Stewart can't recall one person who visited him in the past decade or 2. He has been isolated from the world and doesn't know what's been going on. He doesn't know the Paul brothers are taking over YouTube. So coming out after 60 years must be a huge shock to him, especially this. What is that? How do you explain that that was the most popular thing this year? When he was sentenced to prison, a Volkswagen Beetle cost just $1,700. Shoes were $10. John F. Kennedy was president. People went to space for the first time. The Beatles just released their first single in the UK. So much has changed over time. Number 6, we have a man who served 62 years behind bars. We're talking about Hugh Elderman. He was a bank robber who was obviously caught. His jail sentence started when he was 23 years old back in 1917. Hugh was the sole survivor of a 4-man gang. Just a few years after being sent to prison, he was able to escape, and he escaped again in 1924. In 1927, he was released to a mental hospital where he passed away at the age of 86 years old. He lost his whole life just because he wanted some money. He didn't want to work for it. He was able to steal steal $6,000, which is like, what the heck? But back then, that's $6,000 back then. With inflation, the money now would be worth around $124,000. That's still not enough money to just lose your whole life, like to take chance of that. I don't know. Now, this person has lived a really sad story, and this person comes in at number 5. And I'm talking about Charles Edward Ford, who outlived a 64-year-long prison sentence. The sad part is, Charles was innocent. He has served one of the longest sentences as an innocent person. He was actually released from prison just last year. Charles was convicted of murder. Well, here's a little backstory. This took place in the early 50s, and Charles is a black man who appeared in front of an all-white jury in a time where black people didn't have any rights. Charles was just 20 years old at the time, and his life just flashed before him. After 64 years,
he can really sue for this shit, though,
in a nursing center where he's now 86 years old. I mean, this is a really sad situation. There's no way to give him his life back. Howard Christensen is next up on this list at number 4. Howard was sentenced to life without parole for the murder of a teacher in 1937. He was 16 years old at the time when he murdered a teacher. He committed this crime alongside a 17-year-old who was also caught for the crime. That person was also sentenced to life in prison, but they hung themselves back in 1943, just 6 years after being sentenced. About 30 years into the prison sentence, the sentence was changed from life without parole to 200 years in prison. But in 2001, after serving 64 years, he was released from prison, but just 2 years after that, he passed away. Number 3, Richard Honeck. At the age of 22 years old, Richard was sentenced to life in prison for murder of a former school friend. Life in prison sentence usually varies depending on where you live in the world. It can depend on what state you live in or what city you live in. I know this state has very different laws. Some places they even have a 3-strike law, meaning no matter what crime you commit, if it's 3 crimes, you're sentenced to life. So for Richard, he was paroled after serving 63 years and 1 month in jail. He was released at the age of 85 years old. He lived out another 12 years until he passed away at the age of 97 years old, and that was back in 1976. Now at number 2, we have Johnson Van Dyke Grigsby. Johnson was sentenced to prison back in 1908 for murder. Over the years, he was denied parole 33 times before he was finally released at the age of 89 years old because he was deemed not a threat to anyone anymore. He wasn't a threat to society, so let's just release him. He was released in 1974 after serving 66 years, but he actually quickly returned back to prison voluntarily after finding it too difficult to find a job. So he checked himself back into prison for 2 more years. So now at the age of 91 years old, he's finally out of prison for good. And then 10 years after that, at the age of 101 years old, he passed away. I mean, that's a really sad situation when you check yourself back into prison because you don't know any other life. Finally, at number 1, we have Paul Goodell Jr., who is known to have served the longest prison sentence in the United States, possibly the world. He was sentenced to 68 years in a variety of different New York State prisons, and he actually lived to see the day when he was released from prison. That is actually a very rare thing. At the end of his lengthy sentence, he was paroled at the age of 86 years old. Back in 1911, Paul was convicted of second-degree murder at the age of 17 years old. When Paul was paroled, he actually didn't want to leave prison because that was the only life that he knew. But at the end, he decided to leave. So when he left, there was a lot of reporters there, but he said he doesn't want any publicity. He doesn't want to be on the news. He doesn't even care if people know who he is. Paul went on to live in a nursing home before dying at the age of 93 years old, which is about 7 years after being released from prison. This guy only spent about 24 years of his entire life as a free man. Well, there you guys have it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys very soon in a new Most Amazing Top 10 video.
So yeah, man, that's the end of the video. That's top 10 people who outlived insane prison sentences. If y'all like that video, go and leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe. If y'all have any videos y'all want me to react to, go ahead and send them to me, and I'll react to them. And yeah, man, thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.